Hello everybody and welcome to the first roadmap of the Train Sim World 3 era. Hello everybody and welcome to the having the new Stinger has thrown me off a little
Hello everybody
bit.
and welcome to the first
Hope you enjoyed it though. Welcome Matt. Hello to you. Lovely to have you on as always. We're going to be talking lots and lots and lots today. And just as a pre-warning, if anything, if it does get a little hot, it is about 30 degrees here in the UK at the moment. So if you do start to see us perspiring, it's not because of the questions. It is because of the fact that I've got a fan on which is facing the wrong direction, so it doesn't impact my mic at this point.
There's a lot of comments about echo.
There's a lot of comments about echo. Well, that's a shame, isn't it? I think I've got everything set up as it should do. I think I've got everything set up as it should do.
Have you still got your NDI?
Let's try that. Are we
Is
better
that
now?
Apparently I'm echo as well.
Oh.
Am I still live on NDI audio as well?
I think we're all good.
Yeah?
Should
Okay,
be
we're all
fine.
better now. Matt sounds like he's in a spaceship. I am in a spaceship, it's fine.
Better. Sorted. Okay, brilliant. Well, let's get started, shall we? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Train Sim World 3's first roadmap. It's great to have you all on board. As I say, it's a momentous time. It's the first time we've been, I guess, properly live since we announced on Tuesday. Matt, how are you feeling?
Good. It's been fun watching the forums. I mean, it was especially fun watching the 24-hour countdown. I think that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that.
Hats off to everyone in the team that was
just
coordinating all that.
Just brilliant. So much work went into that.
Yeah, we will. What we'll do, because I know there are a few people that were still a little bit nonplussed as to some of the things that were being shared and all that kind of stuff, and how we all put it together. What we are going to do is we are going to do a little blog, probably after launch, where we talk a little bit about how we did it and how some of the clues all fitted together and all that kind of stuff, because we all had a lot of fun with it. Particularly the emoji clues, which I put together, which I'm not sure anybody actually got any of them right. So I'm going to see if anybody can get them afterwards. But yeah,
I did.
Oh, you did, but you knew, so.
I even on my own Discord, I even gave them a couple of little hints. I was saying, "Has anyone here watched the TV show Catchphrase?"
Someone just say what you see.
Say what you see. I'm like, yes, and still nobody got it.
Nice one. You might also see
sand, burn, add, dino was brilliant.
There we go. There was a sand timer, a flame signal, a symbol, an add sign, and a dinosaur. So that was Sand Bernardino. So there we go. That's the kind of level that we were at. You might also see a little tail in the background. My cat is in the background as well. So say hello to Leo, everybody. Okay, so as you might be well aware, Train Sim World 3 was announced on Tuesday. We are really excited about what we're going to be showing for you over the course of the next few weeks. But obviously, we have the little matter of the roadmap to talk about first of all, because obviously we want to tell you all the kinds of things that we're working on. And I'm just going to get rid of the cat because he's decided that he wants to sit on my lap, and it's too hot for that. So we're going to talk all about the things that we've put together in the last couple of roadmaps. And if you're not aware, we released 2 roadmaps over the course of this week. One yesterday, one this afternoon, which go into a lot of detail about various different things. If you've not read them as of yet, I know that they're long. They are longer than my dissertation, but they give a lot of information, a lot of nice screenshots as well. If you're interested in the more visual side of things, there's a lot of good stuff in there. Really recommend that you read them and also watch the announced video as well, because it gives you a lot of information about kind of really top level introduction to Train Sim World 3. So we are going to be doing, so the format of tonight's stream is we're going to be talking about the stuff that we mention within the roadmap, and we're going to, I think, try and talk about as much as we can, but we are conscious that it's very, very long. So we're going to try and pick out some of our favourite bits and pieces and talk to you a little bit about them. We've got some never before seen video that we're going to be showing you, or lots of them actually, that Matt has recorded on his very own device, and we're going to be showing for you tonight. So that's going to be very exciting. But important point to note, we would normally put some kind of a Q&A style thing at the end of our roadmap streams. We're not going to be doing that tonight. Instead, what we're doing is a stream on Tuesday, next Tuesday, which is going to try and cover as many of your questions as we possibly can do. We're going to show you a little bit of the UI in game as well, a little bit of live gameplay to give you whet your appetites about Train Sim World 3. Show you the menu music, which is really good, and then we're going to spend the rest of the live stream doing a Q&A. There is a thread on our forums for you to submit those questions. But what we wanted you to do was have these 2 roadmaps out, have the live stream out, which will hopefully answer a lot of the questions that you might have, before we then try to answer them ourselves, because we want to try and give you as full and informed answers as we possibly can do for some of these questions, rather than we'll get back to you. This gives us the opportunity to do that. So go over to the forums if you've got questions. Prefer to do it at the end of the live stream if you can, just because we might address some of them in the course of the next probably hour and a half or so. But if you've got a question that you would like to ask us, then please head to that forum thread and we will gather the best, and we'll try and answer as many as we can next Tuesday. There we go. Admin out of the way. Should we talk about Train Sim World 3, Matt?
We should.
Yes, absolutely. Should we start with the routes?
Yeah, go for it.
Brilliant. And you're not giving me much information here because you want me to say the German route first, don't you?
Yeah.
So, the first route that we have for you in Train Sim World 3 is Schnellfahrstrecke Kassel-Würzburg. There we go. I practiced that a few times, but hopefully German speakers in the audience are not too offended by that pronunciation.
Better than mine would be.
So let's talk about Kassel-Würzburg, because we've got quite a lot of really interesting bits and pieces around this particular route. It's obviously the longest route that's ever come to Train Sim World 3. It's 186 kilometers, 115 miles for us Brits. And it is what we're calling a proper German high-speed route. I know we have German high-speed routes in game already, but Matt, what do we mean by proper?
That's what this route is all about. I mean, this is not a route high-speed trains run on. This is a route built for high-speed trains. In fact, it was the original first route in Germany built for high-speed trains. So it's got a bit of heritage, and it's an important route in German history for trains, and it's a bit different. It's sort of you're not going to see. You only see the red trains, the Dostos and so forth at either end, really. And all the rest of the time it's all about high speed. So this is really quite a different kind of German route, which is what we wanted to do. We've done a lot of routes, regional style routes with the red trains on them. I thought it was time to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And the actual route itself kind of undulates through the Bavarian countryside, goes through lots of tunnels, lots of viaducts, and
it's 50 tunnels and 30 bridges.
I'm glad that you counted, because that was going to be one of my questions.
And 3 stations. Someone was asking.
Prepared.
3 stations: Kassel, Fulda, and Würzburg.
Cool. But yeah, you'll be able to get up to 280 kilometers an hour and stay there, which again we know is a piece of feedback that we've had for a while, is that people want to feel the speed as they're going through, and that's kind of what we tried to replicate with this particular route. And actually, one of the questions that I did have for you, Matt, was why this route in particular, but it feels like you've kind of half answered that already. But is there anything else that sort of drew us to this route in particular?
Well, we wanted to do a German route that would actually, that was intended for high-speed trains, not just pick a route you could run high-speed trains on. So Munich-Augsburg, for example, is a route you can run high-speed trains on, but it's not a high-speed route particularly. So it's a different type of experience. We wanted to do something different to what's been done before, and also factor in, one of the big requests is high speed is great, but high speed that's short, you kind of feel like you're speeding up and then you're slowing down again. Whereas with this one, this is a route where you speed up and you stay sped up for a bit. I mean, it's when you leave Kassel for some of the trains, and the next stop is Würzburg, 186 kilometers away. Your due time is a little way, so you'll be speeding up. So it's a really interesting line. There's some really interesting stuff when we showcase it. We can go through a lot of the detail in it, but it's different kind. It's the LZB is different. We've had to rework LZB to make it capable with some of the special requirements of the line, particularly related to the way that you speed up and slow down in tunnels. Or over the bridges, and there's also this thing called dark signals, which is and I want you to spread the message wide every time you see it. Be familiar with it. There's
dark signals. Ready.
Dark signals look like the signal is broken. Right? It looks like the signals, all the lights are off. This is intentional and is a feature of LZB, and it's covered in one of the tutorials. In fact, there is a dedicated LZB tutorial, teaches you everything you need to know about LZB, yes, it's in there and works a treat.
Nice. And obviously high speed is the name of the game, but there is freight available as well on the route, and I know that quite a few people were excited. We had a feature within the part one of the roadmap which talked about which Lucas put together. And Lucas will be on the live stream with me next week previewing it, but yeah, he was talking about obviously the freight kind of taking over in the evening, and that feels like a really interesting dynamic to have, where you've kind of got the high speed during the day, and then kind of the night falls, and you've got a very different service pattern.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Lucas was telling me that the service pattern is busier at night. Not massively busier, but busier. It doesn't get quieter at night; it gets busier because of the freight being sort of let out the gates. It's all sort of gets lined up and then sort of gets let out the gates, and suddenly the route fills with all these freight trains up and down the line. But even then, the freight trains are secondary to any ICEs, so you'll get pulled over into loops all over the place to let the other trains go past you. So it's a really interesting ride. We've even got one scenario in there, which is we saw a photograph of a run where an ICE power car on its own, without the rest of the train, was moved from across the line. So we have a scenario where you get to do that, and again, you're pulled off all over the place, and it's quite fun.
I think variety is a really important part of Train Sim World 3, at least the three core routes. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot of different ways in which you can interact and engage with the three core routes, and I think that's something that perhaps we talked a little bit about in the announce, but it's actually something that I think when players will get their hands on it, that there's lots of different ways that you can kind of play the routes really, and I think that they give you very different experiences. We've not even got onto dynamic weather yet, but it feels like there's a lot of different opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's with the two different sort of speed profiles the different ICE trains do, the freight trains and so forth. There's plenty on there. As I've seen some comments about it being a one and done route, it is not a one and done route. There is plenty to do.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about Kassel Würzburg? Because obviously we're going to be doing the preview stream, and it's going to be next Thursday. So put that in your diaries if you're interested. And we're going to go into a lot more detail and show some gameplay during that live stream. But is there anything else that you want to talk about right now to do with Kassel Würzburg, or should we move on, because we've got a lot to get through tonight?
So there's one question a couple of people are asking about whether you can couple up a loco to the ICE trains, and we have made it to where you can open the coupling thing and it puts out the support struts and so forth, but it's not actually an active coupler, because in order to couple to it you need other special gubbery and so forth to make it work. So the animation is there and interactive, but you can't actually couple to it. The ICE is not built for things to be coupled to it except in emergencies.
I was going to say, it doesn't feel like that kind of a train, does it?
No, also, exactly.
Also, I'm going to use gubbery a lot more in my day-to-day life now.
You should do. It's it's the word.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to our British route, shall we? It's our first extension ever on Train Sim World 3, Southeastern High Speed. Now, this has got a lot of people talking, and understandably, a lot of people have been chatting about Southeastern and the kind of the choice that we've taken to extend that route over perhaps choosing a new route to start with. What's the rationale behind it, Matt? Why have we chosen to sort of take this particular route and bring it, extend it, but also improve it?
Well, if you set Spirit of Steam to one side, then Southeastern High Speed is, I think, the most popular route in the game across people that are playing in the sim. So in terms of people that are actually playing routes, Southeastern High Speed is right up there at the top, and with LGV right behind it, just for interest. And so that sort of says there's a lot of interest in that route. And so one of the questions, we looked at a number of options for what it could be, and one of the sort of the debates we had was, is this an opportunity to take the best route we've done, or the most popular route we've done, and make it better? And if so, what are the main things that people have asked for, such as extending it to Ashford, making Ebbs Fleet fully interactive, and doing more on the commuter trains? And when we looked at it, we identified it was something we could do. And actually, the end result is really, really good as a certainly as a new user experience, but it also then adds something to a route that everybody is really enjoying. So you end up with a tremendously diverse experience, both with the variety of commuter trains, the freight trains, and so forth. So what we then did is we then said, okay, let's put the 465 in the pack as standard, so we can build the timetable around that doing what it's supposed to do, rather than whereas it was as a DLC, it was sort of it had to kind of substitute in. It was kind of odd. And then we've also put freight in as standard as well, using the Class 66. And we actually resurrected a wagon we built a very long time ago for an unreleased pack, unannounced pack even. And it was like, actually, this is a good opportunity to finish that wagon and bring it in as well. So the little 2-axle wagon that's been added, I can't remember what it was, MFA or something. That wagon is it's great to see that finally out there in the world. So there's a wide range of stock in there. What it does is it just provides this really good range of different experiences that you can do. The high speed run from St Pancras to Ashford is a substantial run at a high speed for those that want to do it. But driving the 465 from Dartford to Faversham, which there are a few services that do that, is another hour long, separate, completely different experience. So it's really good to see, and I'm really glad we've done it. Now I've been playing it. It's really, really fun.
I've got some screenshots that I'm just going to flick over to, and then we'll flick back to the cams. Just going to pre-warn you with the slideshow that we've got. It is a slideshow. Matt is delighted, but there is a picture for some reason that seems to be cutting into the rest of the pictures. It's meant to be in there, but it's
OBS is having a day.
OBS is having a day. So if you see a bit of a weird transition, it's not us. Don't worry. So I'm just going to show you the images now. There we go. So Matt, do you want to just quickly?
There's the new wagons.
There's the new wagons.
So that's the MFAs and the JNAs. This is who. So Joe has done a tremendous job on the timetable, working with James Lewis as well, to completely rebuild it from scratch, much more authentic than the previous one. Just look at the lighting on that; that's just amazing. The new lighting in TSW3 transforms the whole experience, let alone the fact you've got those volumetric clouds. This is down at Strood. We've got the Javelin sitting here. For the next one.
Yeah, and just by the way, James will be joining us on the Southeastern preview as well, which will be the week after next.
I think we're still at Strood here. This time we've got the 465, 375 and a 395, so you've got a number of different trains dotted around.
Yep, and as ever, all of these are work in progress images. I know particularly from these images there are already improvements that have been made to quite a lot of stuff. I love this picture.
It's a beautiful picture, isn't it? This is Ashford International, if I remember rightly. This is the Hitachi depot. Where the Javelins are stabled up. I think this, remember rightly, it looks like the depot. Here we are at St Pancras with the good old train bow.
I knew James was going to get that one in there. Yeah, everything that we're going to show you tonight is work in progress. So there were things that will be changed and things that will be different when we show you it live.
This is Dartford, as you can tell by the slightly weird reflective-y station building. It's an odd-looking building, even in real life. Back over at Who Junction, and things have moved on. There's quite a number of things going on for freight. Lots of variety there.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, is that the last picture? If so, I'll swap back to us. But yeah, that's the last picture. Okay, let's swap back to our cameras. Everybody wants to see us more than the trains, obviously. Southeastern it's 89 miles with the extension on it. 45 miles of that is new. But I think what we really would like to get across tonight is that the more track is kind of far from the extension inverted commas word that we're using for this, because there is a lot of stuff that's going on with how we've reworked this. I mean, again, Matt, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it fair to say that there has been pretty much a lot of this has been rebuilt from, or a fair amount of this has been rebuilt from scratch?
I wouldn't say rebuilt from scratch. So the scenery we certainly haven't rebuilt from scratch. What we've done is we've looked at some of the key areas, again working with other people that are really close to the community, like James, and look who's also a local to the area as well, and going through the sort of the key things that were fed back there. Not just bugs, but things that were wrong or just where detail needed to be added. So, for example, as you come out of Gravesend and turn left at the junction to go over to Ebbsfleet in International, we had it as like a cutting that you went over, and actually it should be a bridge. So that's been changed, just as one of the examples. So the scenery, been dotted around throughout the route. The M25 over Dartford crossing, the traffic is all now on the right roads, it's going the right way. And then the overhead line equipment is probably one of the most substantial updates. A lot of the overhead line equipment has been ripped out and redone, both using appropriate assets and also structuring it correctly, and also including line tensioners and so forth. And that's throughout the route. One of the things that people fed back on was that, for example, as you come out of London Tunnel 2, heading towards or in the Dagenham area, you've got the country lines to the left of you, and you're on the international lines. And the way it was implemented before, you had one international gantry spanning all 4 tracks, which is completely wrong. It should be 2 separate gantries, because the old lines were there before the new ones were. So all of that's been ripped out and redone so that that's correct as well. So there's been extensive rework on the gantries. The signalling has seen quite a lot of rework, as well as adding new features. So we've implemented TPWS OSS, the overspeed grids are now all operational. So if you suddenly find yourself getting stopped coming up to reds, you know why. And we've also implemented approach control. So approach control is where the signal will hold you to a red until you've been in the section for a certain amount of time, which is to prove that you're slow enough to go to be safe, and then it will pop up to a more permissive aspect to let you then go. So there's a good example of this is at Who Junction. So there's a scenario where you're driving the Class 66 and you'll be held at a red on entry to Who Junction until you've slowed down, and then it'll pop up to a shunt signal to let you into Who Junction. But that happens a number of times with the with that on there. Fences have been redone. So everyone let out a yelp for joy. It's there's a lot of work gone on to the original section of the route, as well as adding the new stuff in there, because it's a route so many people are really loving and enjoying. It wasn't just about adding extra mileage, it was about how can we make this better.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the 465 comes in, has its own dedicated timetable as well, which is obviously very exciting as well. And it's part of the pack as well if you don't already own the 465, so that's also good. I'm just trying to think if I've got anything.
There's some really cool stuff in the timetable as well, because one of the things we wanted to also do was make it possible to access the international platforms at St Pancras, which were previously bolted off. So that's been opened up. You can now access the international platforms. It's a slightly fictional walkway to get between the two, because we don't want to implement passport control and the like. That's kind of beyond the scope of what we're trying to do here. Even though we don't have appropriate trains to go in there, what we wanted to enable you to do was to put your own trains in there. And Joe, that the sneaky little so-and-so, may or may not have put a couple of TGV test services in that are running trials, so that you can run very high speed on this route.
Oh, I think. Do you know what? I think so. I was speaking to James and Joe earlier, and they were saying that there are a few surprises that they would like to show off, and I think you might have just spoiled one of them. But there are more to be had. So make sure you tune into the preview stream in a couple of weeks. But there's
shut up.
there was one more question that I've just seen from the chat that I was going to grab, and that's around tunnel lighting. Have we
so everything's had to be rebaked anyway, because of the new lighting anyway. So everything has been rebaked.
Cool. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about on Southeastern?
Don't think so. Someone's saying the IC3 has been there in reality. The IC3 would have been the IC3M, and it would have had TVM in the cab. Our IC3 doesn't have TVM, so no, the IC3 is not featured because you can't drive it. It wouldn't make sense. That's why I went with the TGV. Otherwise, no. All done.
Nice one.
I'll
Okay.
stop spoiling.
That's my job. Cajon Pass, US route. Now, this is something. It's kind of a US staple, isn't it? I think we said in the announcement it was one of the first routes to come to Train Simulator, which kind of shows how venerated it is, I guess, even within the worldwide the worldwide railfan community. So for us to be able to bring it into Train Sim World 3 feels really exciting. Tell us a little bit more about it, Matt. Why did we go for Cajon, and what kind of things will it bring to the table?
It was amusing. I was having a conversation with Derek, who many members of the community will recognise, and a couple of others, and we said, so what would we do if we we're going to do another American route? And we kind of had been directed towards, it would be great to use the BNSF license, and we all shouted "Going Pass" same time. It's just such a good route. It's a fun route. It's a classic. There's a lot to see. It's whereas Sherman Hill does get a little bit plainsy at times. It's that's a fun route, but it does get a bit plain in the flat sections of it. Cajon Pass is just always interesting to look at, and it's got 3.1% gradient or something on the steep track 3, which is I think the heaviest train in this sim is about 13,000 tons. And dragging that, or trying desperately to not lose that down to 3% is good fun. So it's an interesting route. It's not 25 miles an hour the entire way. It's the more level side of it, the shallower side of it is a slightly faster. So it's not going to be a snooze driving it. But we've also taken the opportunity to look at adding extra tutorials, so to teach you how to do the transition from uphill to downhill, how to manage the dynamic brakes, all those little things that we actually learned a lot from looking at how well everybody got on with Sherman Hill. The things like the fact that it took 12 minutes to start the train. Happy to report it doesn't. They're pretty much ready to go instantly, as is completely appropriate, speaking to a number of US engineers. So it's much more accurate now than we've done in the past. So that's that. And just this whole adding the tutorials to show, just as I say, looking at the feedback the trouble that people were having, and then the tutorials will walk you through all that stuff. So there's a few tutorials teaching you those more advanced topics.
Nice one. And we've got obviously you mentioned the BNSF livery. That is something that we have wanted to do for so long, and having I can't wait to see all of the orange trains going on the Californian countryside. But the ES44C4, which is the kind of what we're calling the hero loco of this pack, it has a few kind of unique features to it, doesn't it, Matt? And I think we can show one of them actually. I'm just going to quickly change us over again so we can show you. This is one of the first of the videos that nobody's seen before, so buckle up. This is the ES44C4 in action, and Matt, I'm going to ask you to narrate over the top of it.
Sure. So what you're looking at here is the side trucks on the C4, and once I get the brakes released, all I do here is I just throttle it straight up to run A in low adhesion. And what you see as an end result of that is it'll start to lose grip. When it senses it's going to lose grip, it uses those cylinders in the middle and pushes the center there. That'll happen any minute now. There it goes. What's happened by doing that small movement is all the weight has been taken off of the middle axle and is now pressed onto the outer axles, increasing the adhesion dynamically on the train, which stops it losing grip. Now, obviously, if I left it and run it, I'd still lose grip. So you'll see actually it's relaxed now because I turned the throttle back off again. But actually what's happening here, and it is fully simulated, is it's not just an animation. It's operating this animation here and moving and shifting the load physically in the simulation as well.
Nice. And I feel like you turned the bell off very quickly there, Matt. Bad form. Let's go back
That's all
to.
right. This wasn't the Horn and Bell video, so
No, 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 that's fine.
shh, spoilers.
Again, spoilers, Matt. For goodness sakes, we have got the horn for you
We have a
later.
Horn and Bell
We
video.
do have a
Don't
horn
worry.
and bell later, yeah. So again, that's something you can look forward to. So yeah, the ES44C4, the SD40 is the other loco in the pack, and that one has obviously been given a BNSF facelift as well. It's a pretty ubiquitous train, isn't it? Freight train. So it's one of
Oh
those
yeah, the
one.
SD40-2 is everywhere, and and it performs the switching and local services on most routes these days. So it's kind of your clean, dealing with all of the other stuff while the big six axles are traversing the route up and down. I've seen some questions about why did we do the Gevo rather than say a Dash 9 or something. Well, a Dash 9 looks pretty much like a Gevo anyway, so it wouldn't look much different. The reason we chose we wanted to do a Gevo specifically because they are. They're such an iconic part of US freight. And the S44C4 was the ideal one to do because they've got something like 1,300 of them at BNSF. So it's kind of their mainstay of freight now. So that was the reason we chose the C4.
Nice one. Okay. While we're on the subject of kind of unique operations or unique things that the locos can do, is there anything else from the other two packs that we can sort of bring into this discussion as well? Is there anything that we've updated specifically or that are unique to those particular locos?
So the ICE3 and ICE1, certainly the ICE3, Lucas will have to correct me about whether the ICE1 does it or not, have eddy brake simulation now. Which is like magnetic brakes. If I think they're mostly used on the IC3 for emergency stops, but they stop the train in a hurry. You've got eddy brake simulation now implemented. The brake screens that were missing from the IC3, we've added the brake screens, and the PIS across the whole system has been upgraded to allow us to do more detailed PIS screens. That affects things like the Javelins, all the internal passenger car screens have got stuff on them now. Mr. JMP says, can you explore the engine in the ICE one? Yes, you can. You can get out of your seat, open the door, walk through the engine. There's not much to look at except a bunch of cabinets and stuff. But that's where the door to get in and out of the train is, so you have to really. But you can also walk out to the back of that train, you open it up, you're into the passenger car. So you can actually walk from the ICE1 power car into the coaches as well. So that all works quite nicely. I'm trying to think. No, I think that's it in terms of sort of high-level new features that have been brought into the existing trains.
Cool. Okay. And again, we'll go into more details with the individual trains and whatnot in their respective preview streams.
Yeah.
This is designed to be sort of a slightly more detailed overview than perhaps we gave you on Tuesday, give you a little bit more meat on the bones, but we'll be able to go into a lot more detail when we do the respective previews for each of those routes. So appreciate lots of questions. We'll try and do our best to gather them now so that we can then tell you a little bit more about them when, say for instance, we've got a Lucas on the stream to help us out with, say, something like the Kassel Würzburg route, which obviously he's had a big hand in, so can probably answer a little bit better than we can some of the minutiae. So we'll bring the experts on and they can answer those particular questions. We'll try and do our best though. Okay, let's move away from routes and locos and talk about UI, because we have had a big UI facelift.
Yes.
I'm going to actually just transition over so that we can show the players some of the screenshots that we showed in the roadmap roadmap article. So I'm just going to quickly transition. So you can see some of the new UI now. And I know that Sam, remember him, has had a big hand in this, obviously with you, Matt, and Jordan. So can you give us a little bit of an introduction to how we've done the UI and why we've done the UI in the way that we have?
So the UI was really about throw everything away. What would we do differently? And how can we come up with a UI which, without being so, where Train Sim World 2's UI was kind of a variation of Train Sim World 2020's UI. For Train Sim World 3, we want to just throw the rulebook away and start again. How would you do it if you were doing it now? And also looking at some of the feedback we've had. So a number of people didn't like the giant route selector cards because they wanted to see more routes at one point, but then also they wanted to be able to filter and they wanted to be able to search and sort and so forth. So all that stuff is in here. we've taken Creators Club, we've moved the tools like Livery Designer and Scenario Planner and put them inside a Creators Club menu. So from the main screen, which I think is the next one that comes up, he says,
Yeah,
waiting.
these are on a predefined amount of time, so we have got a little bit of time to fill. I love the livery, by the way, that's on the online sharing hub.
Yeah, Kat did that.
Yeah,
Kat did that. It's so yeah. When you click Creators Club in the top right there, you get to the screen we just had. So it's very easy to get to getting into all of the tools, and then the online sharing hub takes you into what you previously called as the Creators Club, in the in-game side of things. This is the loco selection. So one of the key things we wanted to bring in was the ability to drive by selecting a loco and then using that too. And the cool thing there is, if you select a train like a 185, which is on so many different routes, you'll get all the scenarios from all of the routes it's on and so forth, and it'll tell you which routes you can drive that on in service mode. So you don't have to go and find places to see, oh, can I run the 185 here? You just pick the loco you want to drive and it will tell you all the places you can run it, which is just so transformational in terms of how you access the thing. So it's it'll take a little, for those of us that are used to playing by picking the route first, it's a little bit of getting out of that habit and actually going into the train select. But once you do, you realise there's so much more in there.
You can't see this, but when Matt was talking about the being able to more easily go through things and select things by the locos, I just kind of raised my arms to the sky and just said thank you, because it's something that I've needed to have for a long time. So a couple of people have been asking about the HUD UI as well. Is that changed at all in TSW3?
No, the in-game side of things hasn't changed, but we are planning to change it. It's so the team wanted to focus on the main UI, which has been a huge job. There's so much work gone into that, and so the plan was, well, for phase 1 for launch, we get all of the outer game UI, if you like, the main this stuff done, and they've got thoughts and designs for what they want to do for the in-game HUDs. But there's nothing implemented, and not doing any we're not promising anything or anything like that. Just, it's one of those things that we want to do, but as at the moment, it's exactly the same in game as you've got in Train Sim World 2, and as other people in the chat have said, it works quite nicely. So
one of the features that I'm quite excited about, let's go back onto the face cams. One of the ones that I'm most excited about actually is quick play. And the opportunity to be able to jump into something that, say for instance, you've got half an hour and you just want to go in and just drive something, you can just click a button and you can just go in and it will choose a random, is it a service or is it a random service for you that you can just play?
Well, actually, what it'll do is, so if you pick the quick play short, essentially, which is somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes, what it'll do is it'll look at your tutorials, it will look at scenarios, it will look at services, and it will find something that fits the bill. And similarly, then for quick play normal, quick play long, then it will do anything 30 minutes or over. It's a bit of an experiment, just because it's one of those things that to see how popular that is and what feedback we get from what people want to see. When we started designing quick play, it quickly got not very quick, if I don't mind me using the word quick a whole bunch of times in one sentence, because we started putting like a configuration screen in there and all sorts of things, and it's just like, hang on, step back. I think this is one actually where Sam threw a cold shower on us all and said, settle down. And so basically we just went with the under 30 minutes, over 30 minutes, and we'll see what feedback we get and what makes sense to go forward, rather than try to do something super duper and fundamentally not quick.
Yeah, I think that feels good. I mean, adding in that kind of functionality and not necessarily limiting choice is the wrong word, but providing a defined list of options feels like a sensible way of doing it, and then checking through as we go through how much they're being used, how useful a tool is it. But I'm looking forward to seeing people and how they get on and what kind of random service they might get given the cocktail of different add-ons or routes or
there's so much that people have in the collection, and what I've talking to people about what they're doing in it, you realize that there's so much of it they've never touched, because all of us, me included, get a little bit in our ruts. It's just like, oh, I always do this or do this kind of thing. So if you hit quick play, then it will do anything from your collection. Now, you can obviously press escape if you don't like what you're put into, but I know from talking to people on TrainSim Classic that where Quick Drive has a randomizer feature, and people love it. It throw any old train on any old route and make it work for you. Now, this doesn't do quite that. This will take the gameplay that's been created and present you with something from that random list. But I think it's a really good way of sort of exploring your collection, because I know a lot of people, they're just like, I fancy driving a train. I've got less than 30 minutes. Put me in a train.
Let's do it.
And that's what that button does,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what people say and looking forward to seeing your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of questions about will you be able to still be able to select by route?
I can't remember. I know one of the things we've talked about is whether you can limit quick play by route. I don't think that's in the build, so assume not.
Okay.
I think quick play is only at the top level. We have been talking about having it to where it's under the route selector as well, but let's assume not at the moment. And I saw somebody else there asking whether or not it only works on TSW3 routes. No, it works across your entire collection.
Cool. There's been a few changes to the scenario planner UI and a few of the things to do with customization and Creators Club as well, isn't there?
Yeah, so we talked with Sam, obviously.
Who's in the chat? Hello, Sam.
Hello, Sam. We talked with beta forum users and other users of it to find out, where the rubbing points were on the existing user interface, because we haven't added new features to Scenario Planner. It's not the 2.0 thing we've been talking about as a potential for the future. But we wanted to make it fit with the new user interface and at the same time try and smooth out some of the experience. And actually what the team have done is, actually ends up being quite a substantial quality of life expansion to the Scenario Planner, and makes it one of the beta forum users who did a scenario said he did some testing and he said, well, I did a scenario in Train Sim World 2 and it took me about 13 minutes. I did the same scenario in Train Sim World 3, it took me about 3. Just because the interface was slicker.
Have to go through, you didn't have to go through loads of menu screens.
Just because it was
and stuff.
slicker. And what I find when I'm using it is I feel more confident. There's something about the Train Sim World 2 UI where I kind of feel like sometimes I'm having to press the back button and is that going to abort what I'm doing or save what I'm doing? And I'm not sure. Whereas the user interface now is super clear on these things about save and exit or such and such. So yeah, I find it a lot more fun experience using the Scenario Planner. But just to be clear, functionality-wise, it's identical. It's just a tidier, neater flow in the user interface. Really happy with what the team achieved there.
Absolutely. And UI will be showing off next Tuesday. We'll do a short section on sort of the menu music and the UI so you can get a sense of how it all works in practice. We're not going to show you too much gameplay. Don't worry, we're going to save that for Thursday. But and that'll precede the Q&A session that we're going to be doing as well. So thanks for all your questions in the chat. If you'd like them answered, we'll try and get through some tonight, particularly if they're relevant to what we're talking about at the moment. But if you've got kind of any more burning questions, head to our forum thread, which we've dedicated a forum thread and most of a live stream to be able to cover. So please use that wisely and we'll do our best to answer as much as we can. Okay, let's move on to one of the fun things that I think we led with in the announce, which is dynamic weather.
Finally,
we've wanted to talk about this for so long, and so many things have been done to this to try and make it get through the door. But I'm going to show you some screenshots just to kind of kick things off a little bit. We've got a video for you as well, but I'm just going to show you some screenshots to begin with. So dynamic weather obviously is going to revolutionize the way that you play Train Sim World 3 because it changes. You can't just have the same experience going from A to B like you would do beforehand because you're going to have to try and adapt to multiple different changes in weather and how that will impact your ability to drive the train effectively. And I realise I'm doing Matt's bit here, but I'm hoping, Matt, I'm doing a good job of it, and I'll pass over to you and see if I've missed anything out.
No, it's all good. I think we wanted with dynamic weather, otherwise, is actually to want to get you out your comfort zone and you're driving. So because with the adhesion that changes as things get wetter or snowier. You might find that the grip's not what you thought it was, and that will mean that you need to be a little bit on your heels and watch for things changing, and drive according to the conditions. So you won't be on autopilot anymore if you were, and it changes the experience each time. You can choose in the dynamic weather user interface, you can choose what weather pattern you want to start with, but then it will then proceed with the weather as it goes. J&B says, will the trace sway more as the wind increases? That's been there since day one, Mr. J&B. It's always done that, and it continues to do that. You will see it in the video as well. Yeah, so we've also implemented, it's 4 different dynamic weather patterns based on, so you pick the date and the month, the day and the month, and then the weather patterns are seasonal. So the winter weather pattern is different to the summer weather pattern, for example. So yeah, it's you'll find it sort of veering the weather in different ways, more likely to be bad weather, less likely, and so forth. So it's quite an interesting thing. Stephen says, will dynamic weather be implemented to older routes? It is implemented because it's a system feature. Dynamic weather is now part of service mode, so it will affect everything, including your old collection.
Yep, important point to note, and it's the as of today, it's the only feature that's going to be ported back to the older Train Sim World 2 content that will come into Train Sim World 3. So you'll be able to play that. Things like the weather, things like the lighting that will come into is just for Train Sim World 3 related content at this stage. One of the shots, we'll come into it in a second, but I have got a couple of questions for you around that. Oh, there we go. This shot, I absolutely love this shot. I think it's great.
Me too. I posed this shot because I wanted to try and get that red light in 4 different places.
So many reflections. It's wonderful. So when you were talking about the different weather patterns associated with the seasons, I would assume, therefore, that something like you're more likely to get thunderstorms in the summer, and you're more likely to get something like snow, obviously, during the winter.
Well, whether it's rain or snow depends on the temperature, which also depends on your altitude, same as it always has done in the past. So on Cajon Pass, if it's raining at the bottom, it might be snowing at the top, depending on how close to zero you are at the temperature at that point. But yeah, I mean, it's that is the kind of thing. I don't have the exact patterns to hand, but it is very much like the weather patterns you'd expect to see. You are going to find generally more fine weather, but all of them can go bad at various ways and at various times, and it's all probabilities and it is random.
That's, I mean, you do get freak weather sometimes, don't you? You do get like
and that is in there.
Yeah, and that's obviously. I mean, we're not going to get. I would imagine we're not going to get tornadoes or anything like that, but there'll be some pretty epic.
It generally stops running trains in tornadoes, so you can simulate those quite easily.
That's fair. That's very fair. And the other thing I wanted to touch on before we get onto the video is seasonal timetables, because it's not necessarily a dynamic weather feature, but it's something that obviously is coming, and it's to do with seasons and all that kind of stuff. But from what we've discussed beforehand, there will be different service patterns based on the time of year as well. Correct, Matt? Isn't that?
Yeah, so there isn't. This isn't something we've used extensively yet. It's something that's coming in, but you'll find that on some timetables, the time of year you pick changes the types of services that are available. So there are some services which are only summer and some which are only winter, for example. And for those that just spot over onto tech just for a bit, we talk about layers. And essentially what this is time activated layers. So these are layers that turn on and turn off effectively given a certain time. So it's interesting. It means that there's a bit more variety. You're playing at different times of year, you'll get different services in some cases. Like I said, at the moment it's not a massive variation, but the team is starting to get used to how that is and how you design a service mode around that stuff. So it's something we'll definitely be developing further as we get more familiar with how to use that and how to best get the best out of it.
Okay, cool. Should we move to the video?
Yes.
Let's do it. Okay. All right. So this is a time-lapse video over the course. Matt, you sent this to me probably about 45 minutes ago, or 45 minutes before the stream, so I didn't really get a chance to watch it properly. But what route are we on, and what are the kind of tell us a story.
Well, I'm going to throw some of this out to the viewers because hey, let's all have some fun here. You tell me what route it's on. You tell me what station we're at. Okay.
All right.
But what we're going to do is we're going to see the dynamic weather. I've got the game running 4 times normal speed, and this is about 3 or 4 minutes. And I'm actually it's super accelerated because you'll see every now and again a command console blip up in the bottom corner, and that's me saying get on with it, move on to the next bit, get on with it, move on to the next bit. So this is very compressed. But it will give you a good idea of how the visuals evolve and morph and what it looks like. All I'm doing in that console command is saying move on. I'm not telling it what to do or anything. So if I just waited, then in theory the same thing would have happened, but over 2 or 3 hours maybe. So let's watch.
Okay, let's do this.
So where are we, folks? I mean, if it takes more than a minute, then you're all sleeping.
I mean, there's a slight delay on the stream, but I'm sure that we'll start to see comments fly in. Oh, there are some different guesses though.
Yes, it's indeed. So we are indeed in Kassel on the Kassel-Würzburg line, and you can see the clouds rolling in.
And we've started.
And the snow has started. And yeah, the sky fills up. The shadows have gone because the clouds block out the shadows. The tone of the environment has all changed as the shadows come in, and it's all looking a bit bleh now. So the snow's coming down, and in a minute you'll see the snow appearing on there. The other sort of sneaky thing that I did with this is I'm running this in service mode, so I get a bit of an idea of the services. Any red trains you see are not drivable. Here comes the snow coming in. You can see that landing. You can start to see it
building, can't you?
We've got a video showcasing the snow more detail, but so you see, a variety of trains coming in a relatively short period of time. This is not actually over a huge amount of time because even though it's running 4 times fast, I'm just sitting there pressing the get on with it button each time. So the snow's coming in, and we've kind of settled down now. And then I think I press the button in a minute, and we move on.
Turbocharged it.
And yeah, so
crazy.
It makes a. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say, Crazy Killer asks a question around: will the weather sometimes not change, or is it gonna? Will it always change? Yeah.
Sometimes the decision is to stay where you are.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it will just stay where it is, or get better, or sometimes it will carry on getting worse. Or so you can see now the blizzard effect has kicked in. The wind is picking up. The fog has come down. You'll see the trees start blowing about shortly, and you can see. Just imagine if you were driving, all of a sudden your visibility has just gone through the toilet. So you're going to have to be relying, in this case, you'd be relying on your LZB very closely, which you would normally be anyway. But it does kind of make you feel a little more vulnerable if you can't see what's going on.
Yeah, obviously this is a work in progress build, and obviously like that, a couple of people noticed there's not snow on the platforms, which is fine. I think Matt, there's something to note.
Yeah. Will the snow melt if the sun comes back out? It will. There you go. The blizzard effect kicked in. You can see that blowing now. So the blizzard effect has been reworked. Those of you that are familiar will know that the blizzard effect can't keep up with the trains. Yeah, they can now. And they've also been dialed down in the way that they work. So a little. I purposely ended that video once the BR101 came in because I know how the 101. It's boss train really. It's
just the kind of the mic down moment, isn't it? Mic drop moment, and kind of like and we're there.
There are drivable BR101 services.
Cool. So yeah, how the weather evolves is random, I guess. Is it fair to say it's random? Yep. So
yeah, the weather is random. So essentially, if there's a weather state which is light cloud, and then there are a number of next states that it can move into, and a probability of each one of them happening, it throws the coin up in the air, and whatever number it lands on, it says, right, okay, looks like we're going to get more cloudy, and then sort of move to the more cloudy state, and then it'll just keep doing that, walking its way around the weather pattern.
Yeah, and a couple of people just asked about the snow on the platforms. Is that something that we are looking to work on, or is that something that assume what you're seeing now is kind of how it'll be launched?
I would say assume the safest thing I can say is assume everything is how it's going to be. I am going to talk to Lucas after this and see what we can do.
Cool. All right. Anything else dynamic weather related? Anything else you want to touch on, Matt? Anything else that we've missed, or do we feel like that's a pretty good introduction? Obviously, this will be visible throughout all of the different preview streams that we're doing. We're probably going to have a separate live stream on weather and visual effects as well. So we'll be able to show a few bits and pieces there as well. But is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we move on to the next thing?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Okay. So, shall we talk about volumetric skies?
Volumetric skies.
Right. So, what do we mean by volumetric skies? Just to kick things off, I know we've talked about this a few times, but for anybody that's new to the live stream or is new to Train Sim World 3, what are volumetric skies?
So in Train Sim World 2 and in Train Sim World 1, the skies are a texture. They're a picture up in the sky that's completely flat, and it provides the illusion of clouds, and it's done that way because it's cheap. Cheap in terms of processing costs, and effective, to be fair. However, it's not 3D. It does not have volume, hence volumetric skies. So volumetric skies are 3D clouds, and these clouds exist in 3D space. You will therefore move under them as you're driving. They will change and evolve around you. They cast shadows on the ground. It's. I was trying to find a screenshot I took a while back of on Cajon Pass and you could, from where I was at, you could just see this cloud, this big shadow on the ground in front, and it's just like I was about to drive into this darkness for a little while. It looked like. So it's very good, and don't worry about your GPU simulator. One of the things that the team have spent a lot of time on is making sure this all works on a Gen 8 console. So actually, this is not just the stock standard UE4 volumetric skies. They've done a lot of work to optimize the heck out of them and make them run better. So you shouldn't need a faster graphics card. You're ideally, even though we've updated the recommended specs, that's based on what is a recommended spec based on current hardware. Actually, recommended spec. Whatever machine you're playing at the moment should be perfectly fine to get all of this new stuff working.
Yeah, we are testing minimum specs at the moment, and we plan to add those to the FAQs, and we've been able to confirm what the minimum specs are.
Yeah.
Okay, let's show them, shall we? These were all shown on the roadmap article earlier, but if you missed them, here are some of the examples of what we mean by the skies. So obviously, at any one time, you're probably looking at the sky taking up to a third, a half of your screen. So it's really important for us that we get this kind of thing looking as close to reality as we possibly can do. And obviously with the dynamic weather, that provides quite it revolutionizes, I guess, how you would interact with that kind of part of your screen in terms of where your eye gets drawn to and how you kind of keep your eyes peeled for signs that things might be changing in the weather. I guess this is kind of almost like one of your first warning signs potentially.
Oh yeah, it's really good watching the what's going on in the sky, particularly as things change. But even if the weather isn't changing, the clouds are moving and changing shape. The sky is alive all the time. When I did the capture videos, I think I captured about 15 minutes footage to get that dynamic weather one, and even though it wasn't as perceivable when I was playing it, when I played it back and I played it, 5 times normal speed, all these clouds are all just moving and alive and moving, and it's really, really neat, and it adds so much more. And one of the things that I've certainly liked is, particularly when you're driving the faster trains like the ICE and the 395, is just that perception of speed as you're flying underneath clouds that are going above you is just tremendous. I love this screenshot. Lucas took this screenshot.
It's so busy.
Yeah, I mean, this is all the red trains here are non-drivable, just to be really clear. These are the AI, and effectively what they do is they go off the route immediately, which is why they're not drivable. But we wanted to make the end stations, not feel like a wasteland. So some of that's layers coming in from other routes. There is a couple of red trains included just to provide some base levels, so you don't need layers to get some degree of traffic. Yeah, really, really pleased with that. And this one, you can actually see the ground slightly darker near the train, and that's cloud shadow going on there.
I was going to talk about cloud shadow when we talk about lighting, but you've got there ahead of me. But no, it's a good feature because, as I say, you can. It feels like, again, as you would in real life, if there is a cloud above you, it's not just going to cover the whole sky, or it's going to cover a certain patch, and it's going to move along. And I think, again, that's a really a feature that you might not immediately notice, but it's something that just kind of helps build that level of immersion.
Mm. Yeah, someone's asking what the base AI is on this on that route. It's the Talent 2 and the 146 with the Dostos are the basic AI trains.
Cool. Okay, volumetric skies. Obviously, they are very visual. We want to be able to that you'll see them throughout all of the different previews and videos and everything like that we're going to be doing.
You can't take a screenshot without clouds on it.
So. No, and it's also I think also volumetric skies. You can get a certain amount from screenshots, and obviously those look brilliant, but I think also you'll get a sense of how that works in practice when we get the chance to actually drive the thing. So that will be interesting, and I'm sure, as I say, we'll get some feedback from you all when we do some of the actual live streams. Cool. Okay. Kind of moving on, sort of from volumetric skies, talk about lighting, because I know that this is an area in particular, Matt, that has had a lot of love and care dedicated to it. This is one of the things that when we were in the period between, like, in the last sort of 2 or 3 months, we've seen quite a few different threads crop up around lighting and improving the lighting and all that kind of stuff. And we've wanted to jump in and say, we're working on it, but we haven't been able to. Now we can. So tell us a little bit about how we have rebuilt lighting from the ground up with TSW3.
So, I mean, it literally is a case of starting again. I mean, it's like the UI. I mean, it's where it's not just. So we had a time of day system, which is a TOD system, which what we call it, and it was powered by various graphs telling it what lighting to do at different times of the day and so forth. And for Dresden, Ed Fisk and Lucas had quite heavily adjusted some of those graphs to try and improve the lighting, and that's where the sort of the lighting improvements came from for that. But it was still based on that, and it wasn't based on physically based lighting. What we've done here is basically throw out all of those graphs, and it's now an automated system based on physically based lighting. Now, I'm starting to get to the end of my understanding of the techno babble that the team were telling me when they were going on about it, but it sounded really awesome. And it is literally about making the whole lighting system based on real world lighting levels. So instead of sort of saying, is it red, green, or blue lighting from 0 to 1 and then balancing it out? It's, well, how many lumens is it and what hue and all the rest of it are these lights, and setting up lights based on how they are in a real world. So train lighting, for example, we got the documentation for the train lights on the light bulbs in the front of an ES44, and we've set them up to that level of lighting. We've got documentation on platform lighting and what levels the lights are set up to on platforms, and that's how they've been set up. So, Unreal even has a tool where you can walk around in debug mode, and you can point the center of the screen at an area, and it will tell you what lux lumen values you're getting out of that area, and we can make sure that balances up with what you're seeing. So it's a really interesting change. One of the things that it changes is the difference between light and dark is tremendous now compared to what it was. The whole scenes are significantly brighter than they used to be, although it's all balanced out, so it's not as obvious that they're significantly brighter. But I think the lights they were saying to me about 1,000 times brighter essentially, but everything is, so everything balances out. But the brightness therefore is the difference between the bright and the dark is so much more. And that meant that we had to get our adaptation working properly. So we've set that up, and we've even brought in a bug fix from Unreal Engine 5 to fix some flaws with the eye adaptation feature. There's at least 3 lines of code from UE5 in there. So it's just to get the eye adaptation feature, because what would happen is it would get stuck. And it would get stuck at a particular lightness level, and you'd have to look at the ground or the ceiling to get it to reset itself. So that's all fixed. There's a lot of changes to Unreal to make it work the way that we want to make it work, and that get involved in this. So one of the other things that happens with eye adaptation is if you're inside a loco cab, and this comes up some extent on Sherman Hill. Actually, people were saying that when you're inside the cab, the outside world gets really bright. and it's because the cab is relatively dark, and so adaptation brings it up, which brings the entire scene up, including what's outside. So again, we put some fixes in now that allow us to do adaptation more cleverly when you're inside a cab, so that it doesn't blossom, it would bloom out the outside world.
Okay, cool. I'm going to quickly switch to an image because we can show this in action. Sort of not. We've got a few bits to show for this one, so I'm just going to show sort of this is what TSW2 currently looks like. It's a little bit washed out, a little bit, but you can really see everything pop here. You can see the shadows more defined. The loco's colours feel like they're more vivid, and it just generally looks like a more realistic image.
Yes, it does. You can also see our new characters as well.
Yes, yeah. We're not going to go into characters today. We're going to, again, you'll see enough of them in the next few weeks, I would imagine. But we're not going to go too much into character art. But there is a section in the roadmap, if you are interested, actually, in today's roadmap, where we talk about some of the things that we've done with character art. It's really interesting. Okay.
So the difference between the two is just stark. And not only that, if you're standing inside this covered area of St Pancras Station, particularly towards the back, it's like it gets super bright beyond that point because your eyes have got used to the sort of the darker inside the station area. And then as you walk down the platform to walk out, there's this contrast change that happens between the two, which just isn't present in the old lighting system. So it's and there's a lot more detail in the shadows. You'll see that the shadows are picking up a lot more variance, as well as being more defined. There's a lot more detail to the shadows.
Yeah, and I've just swapped to another image as well that I think hopefully indicates this as well. I realise there's a couple of videos that I haven't actually shown yet, Matt, that I probably should have done already. So we'll keep those in the bank and we'll show them at the end. They are I think they're both Southeastern actually. So I'll show them both at the end. But enjoy the lighting for the time being. Shall we cut to the eye adaptation stuff that we were talking about? Yeah, okay. So this is what eye adaptation will look like. And I think, is this using Kassel as a example?
Yeah, so we are blasting down the line, and this short video is going into and out of a tunnel.
Cool. Okay.
So as we go into the tunnel, it gets dark. Your eyes adjust, and now you can see the headlights actually on the wall on the side. So our eyes are in dark mode. You can change the darkness on the brightness on the screens as well, and you can see the the brightness outside. And as you come out, you get this flare as your eyes then readjust. And it happens really quickly, but it just makes such a difference to the way that the light is as you come out.
Yeah, I think that. I think, again, I said this in the launch stream, but that I think is one of my single favourite features of Train Sim World 3 is the eye adaptation and the coming out of the tunnel. Because, again, you don't realise everybody does it. When you go from light to dark, you're dazzled when you come out into bright light, but we've never really been able to replicate that and it seems like something that is just as natural as anything else, but we've been able to bring it in there. It's great. Should we play it again?
Go for it.
Yeah? Okay, let's do that then. Boom.
So yeah, we're in the ICE1 cab here. I thought I'd do the videos in the ICE1 cab. It's what you want to see. As I said, the screens have got individual brightness controls, so you can dial them down. I left them on the default max brightness. But yeah, you can see the bright lights of the outside and then flash as you come out.
Nice. And there are lots of tunnels with which to explore this in particular as well with these routes. So again, really kind of playing to our strengths, I would say, with this kind of thing. It's a really good feature. I think that hopefully players will get a lot of use out of, and a lot of we'll certainly see a lot anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really cool. All right. Anything else you want to talk about on the lighting? I know we were talking about there was a couple of mentions in the forum actually around draw distance. As far as I'm aware, draw distance we are not changing for TSW.
Draw distance hasn't changed. Shadow draw distance hasn't changed. So the lighting is the thing. Shadows will be where they were before.
Cool. So yeah, it's something that we did get asked a couple of times, but hopefully you can see from what we've been able to show you that there is a marked difference, whatever platform you might be playing on.
Yeah. There's some people have been asking about other train lights brighter, and yeah, like I said earlier on, we've gone back to manufacturers' design specs for lights and set them up according to the design specs for those lights and the luminosity values that they are set to for that. So hopefully you'll find the lights look much more realistic.
And finally, night lighting. How will night lighting be impacted by this?
So again, all of the platform lighting and so forth, we've gone back to specs for the lighting levels that are designed for stations, and gone through various assets, and just so you should find night lighting to be an enjoyable experience.
Okay. We'll show you again. We'll aim to show in various different opportunities in the next few weeks what night will look like as well as during the day. Obviously, it's a lot easier and a lot better to be able to showcase a route during the day, but we want to try and make sure that we'll do a little bit in the evenings as well, just so you can get a taster of it. Okay, cool. Shall we move on to audio? Because again, this is something that when I was reading through the road, we asked for contributions to the roadmap. And again, if you've not read the audio section, it's really interesting. I don't know anything about audio mixing or anything like that, and I found it really intriguing how everything was put together and kind of the way that we've been able to do audio within TSW3. First things first, we've got new menu music, which is great. We've had one of the community team, very proud head of director of community here. One of my team, Ben, has put together the menu music, which hopefully you're all going to love. We'll show you that next week.
I love that piece, and I just want to shout out Ben, just personally. He put up with so much trouble from me in particular, but I'm just thrilled at where we got to.
Absolutely, and yes, so we'll talk more generally about audio, because it's an area that we constantly strive to improve even, and TSW3 will obviously be no different. If you've not read the section in today's roadmap, really encourage you do. But we've obviously done a lot of the work internally ourselves, but we've also gone and asked for source material from elsewhere, haven't we, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. We've picked up sounds across the board. We tried to go through all of the sounds in the various routes and give them a lot of love and attention. So, for example, the Class 66 has got a brand new sound set from based on source sounds from Armstrong Powerhouse. The 375 has been overhauled. Similarly to a similar level that the 377 on London Brighton. What else? The ESC 44 has got new sounds in there. We didn't go and record new sounds because when we looked in the library, actually already had them, and we compared them with what we were hearing on other YouTube videos, and they were pretty close. So the problem with all American trains is getting to access to them to record them, and the freight operators have got other things to do with their day than worry about us running around their yards. So it sounds awesome, and working with Jim Melisky again on the horns. So we've got new unique horns for the trains as well. And working with Mike, actually, who did all the physical setup of the ICE1 train, also did all the work on the audio for it as well. So it's just tremendous audio across the board. And we've brought in new wagon sounds as well, that from Armstrong again, to beef up all of the audio experience on the freight wagons.
Yeah, so there was something that I wanted to. Obviously, we'll come back to kind of we have got the horn. Don't worry, we will be showing you the horn in a second. We've got a video of the ES44 C4. So, but we want to show you these. These are called spectrographs. And this is kind of a little bit more roadmappy than maybe Train Sim World 3, because these will all be things that we'll see and we'll do for all kinds of things that we do. But I was really interested by this, so I've tried to see if I can get these into the roadmap stream. And I'm just going to describe it as Adam, our senior audio designer, describes it in the roadmap, just so that you've got a little bit of context for things, because I think this is really interesting. I'm just waiting for it to, because we have it on a loop, and I'm just waiting so that I don't start describing something and it switches halfway through. So I'm just trying to fill for a little bit until it sort of gets back to where I need it to be from two to show you. We've got the ICE one, and we've got the ES44C4, and just to show you kind of how all of these different sounds kind of play out together and what they look like in what this spectrograph ends up looking like. Probably could have gone through it in this time. It's still not changed over. There we go. Transition. Here we go. So this is what it looks like. This is the ICE-1 one. So if you look at A, that's the sound of the door alarms playing and the doors closing. The line at the end of those alarms is the door slamming shut. So you can see that sort of vertical line there. B is the start of the fans spooling up, so you can see how they pitch up over time to a steady speed, and that's why the sound becomes a steady line. And C is where the train begins to move, so the traction motors can be heard, the brighter lines and speed increases, so does the pitch of the motors, and a secondary tone comes in halfway between C and D. And I've missed out D, but here is the, I swear that was quicker on we were trying to fill, ES44C4. A, so the solid lines are the various tones that make up the horn. They are clear to stand out as they are the loudest at that particular moment in time. B are the dot light parts are the bell ringing away, and C, the brighter colour in the base of the sound is the train is now rolling past, and more specifically the locomotive, and you'll see a slight dip in the horn pitch, and this is the Doppler at work. So I probably understood about 4 words that I actually just said right then.
The
D on
key
this
thing
one.
is, so what a spectral analysis is doing is it's breaking sound out so you can see sound. It's really fascinating. It does a transform one. It allows you to see all of the frequencies so that you can see what's going on. So rather than just, so a lot of people might be familiar with seeing the sound like the wave at the top of the screen, the little thin wave you can see at the top. Well, the spectral analyzer actually breaks it all out, and you can see how the tone of the sounds change. You look at the horn on the ES44 one, this one, you can see the all the individual components and the bells and the sounds and how they are chiming and so forth. You can actually see what's going on with the sounds. It's absolutely superb way of doing it, and it actually is one of the tools that is used for particularly if we need to synthesize audio. You go for your recording of the audio and do a spectral analysis of it, and then you try and recreate audio and re-spectral analyze what you're looking at and try and get the 2 graphs to match. And then of course, if you've got a synthetic version, then you're able to then do more with it, and also not have background noise and so on and so forth. So it's this whole technique of using the spectral analyzer just means that you can literally see audio. It is a really fascinating tool.
Yeah, and a lot of people saying this would be great if we could actually hear it. Well, we do have the ES44C4 for you, and we're going to be showing you that. The problem is, as I say, we can't really, we can, I guess we could put audio over this, but we're going to show you a lot of stuff over the next few weeks, and we want to try and hold a couple of bits and pieces back. But we're obviously going to show you the horn, and Matt, should we show it now?
Go for it.
Let's do it. Okay, so this is the ES44C4. I always struggle with that. Horn.
Pumpkins.
There we go.
Those were the maxi stack wagons at the end as well.
Nice. So you'll obviously hear a lot more in the next few weeks. That was a little taster, though. We hope you enjoyed that. It's obviously good to see BNSF. No, I did not record it, Liam. Don't be silly. It's great to be able to see that, and as I say, we'll do a lot more of that kind of thing in the next few weeks. Should we talk about visual effects?
Go for it.
Okay, visual effects. We have got kind of a tick list, not one tick list, they're all kind of independent things in their own right. Tonight we're going to be talking about specifically snow, I think, but we obviously need to mention the other things that we've been working on. So we have the third rail sparks, which again I'm sure we'll show over the course of the next few weeks. We have catenary flashes as well, and again, if you will have seen those if you've seen the announce the announcement we did on Tuesday. There's a few shots of the catenary flashes in there as well. We have lightning in game. Again, we're going to hold that one back for you because we want to try and keep that as much of a not surprise, but like an impact as possible when we're playing the game itself. But let's talk snow, shall we? Because as I say, snow's got a lot of love. Oh, actually, no, sorry. Just before we do that, we also have things like we talked about reflections and rain and all that kind of stuff. Is there anything from a kind of a rain perspective that we're amending for TSW3?
So what it's relatively minor thing, but it just adds to the sort of the scene is rain splashes. So when the rain hits the ground, it will splash. It's only a small thing, but it just makes the rain feel more like it's there rather than just somehow pasted on the top of the screen, because it is there. But the fact that it doesn't interact with the ground or anything has always damaged that illusion, if you like. So it now does that. We've also improved the ray tracing used to work out where rain is and where rain isn't, because it worked out that some rain technically started below canopies sometimes. So it looked like it was. So we fixed all of that now, so that canopies now do prevent rain properly.
Nice. Mr. JMB asks, will puddles form?
Puddles have always been a feature. It's not something that's no different to what it was before. So sometimes puddles are built into the asset, so that when the texture is wet, it has a puddle in it, and other times it doesn't. So that will be no different to how it has been previously.
Cool. Okay, well let's talk snow then, because we've got a few things to be able to show today with snow. I think we tried to show a couple of them in the roadmap article, but obviously some of these are best done through video, so we've got a couple of videos to show with you. But we've done quite a lot with snow, and the snow kick up. There is the kind of the build up of snow after a period of time, which you saw from some of the time lapse video that we showed earlier on. How tough? Because these visual effects, they feel like they should be something that is quite simple to put in, but I would imagine that there's a bit more of a complexity to it than that. Coming at this from hey, I'm an onlooker who doesn't know the first thing about development. How difficult is it to get these done, Matt?
I mean, it depends who's doing it, but the team. Well, there's a lot more to think about. There's a lot more angles to think about, and also if you've used if you used Train Sim World 2 and you've tried to go from a no snow scene to a snow scene, what you'll have noticed is the snow doesn't apply evenly on various different asset types. So the sleepers would get snow before the ballast does, and sometimes buildings would suddenly go white while nothing else is. It was all out of sync, and it's because everything individually was making a decision about how it would apply snow based on the global snow level, rather than it just being done via a central bit of logic. So there's now central logic which manages how the snow filter works, and then everything has been modified to use that to find out how snowy should I be, and then apply it in an even scene. So what that means is that as you've seen in the previous scene, and you'll see in one of the videos coming up, snow now applies in an even way. But they went further than just that, because that was what I'd asked to do, was actually just fix it so that works in an even way. Because actually having the scene go from bright colourful to just white is quite a notable improvement or a change in the scene, particularly if it starts snowing. But what they've actually gone a step further with that, and they've used a technique I can't remember the name of, to actually make it to where the snow mounds up. So the snow actually lifts, and you'll see in the video I think we've got coming up, which actually if you watch the snow apply, first the ground goes white, and then you'll see it lifting, and it almost covers the rails. So it makes quite a difference to the scene entirely.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we show that in action?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Cool.
So this video, again, I'm going to throw a shout out to the community here. You can tell me where we are and on what route. But you can see the snow starting to pick up on the bottoms of the rails, and the ground will start picking up. There you go. So the whole scene is now starting to turn white. Now it keeps just changing to white. There we go. Don Derek has got it. It is indeed Dartford on Southeastern high speed. So the scene is now fundamentally turned white, but you can still see the sleepers, and this is what we're looking for here. So as I don't know if you can well you can see it on there, but the snow's kind of got a reflective sort of quality to it now as well. Which is a new material effect that's been added to it. But then you'll start seeing the snow start to the snow level rising. If you keep an eye on the sleepers, particularly the ones near the camera,
Yeah, I can see it.
you can see the snow level actually rising now as the snow continues to go on. You see the sleepers getting gradually buried, and then where it'll start going up the rails and so forth. So you can see that being applied.
Yeah, and how sped up is this, Matt? Is this
two or three times?
Two or three
Maybe
times.
I can't remember. But it goes up quite a way, and it doesn't go up evenly. It's bumpy, it's lumpy. It's actually made quite a difference to the scene now. It looks a lot more Christmassy, looks more snowy, rather than it just looking like normal but white.
Yeah, and I think, as I say, we showed a couple of pictures of this on the actual article, but I think actually this video does a much better job of illustrating kind of how that works in reality. So let's just quickly flick back to us. So yeah, that's kind of snow build up. We've also got kick up effects, haven't we, Matt?
Yes. So this actually came up when we did Boston on rush hour, and we were looking at because we'd gone to a large extent to sort of try and make it so that we could see to get the snow as the scene as good as possible in rush hour. But whenever you looked at videos from the Northeast Corridor, you'd see all the snow being kicked up by these trains. It's like, you know what? I really want to do that. I really think it looks awesome. But again, what it does is it grounds the train to the world, and makes it look like, rather than it looking like two things that are pasted on top of each other, it makes it look like you're interacting with that world more. So the team went ahead and they've implemented this kick up effect using the new UE4 particle system.
Should we show it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so this is the ICE
shortest video ever, but
yeah, sorry, this is going to be quite
sorry,
quick.
the ICE is really fast.
We'll show it a couple of times. So we'll show you this one. Oh no, that's not the right one. I've not done the right one there. Give me 1 second while I get to the right. There we go. There's two that are called snow, and I've chosen the wrong one, obviously. There we go.
So the effect gets more as the trains are faster, less if they're slower. All the trains in the game will do it. It's quite nice having an American train rumbling by at sort of 35 miles an hour and got this little snow kick up along the side of them. It's just a nice effect.
There we go, short but sweet. I think that's the end of all of our videos. I think for this. Oh no, it's not. Sorry, no, because the two that I forgot to show. I forgot to show. We'll do that at the end of when we've talked about training center. But anything else on visual effects, Matt? I know obviously we'll go into a lot more details in some of this stuff in future live streams. But from a top level, anything else that players will need to know at this stage?
I don't think so. I think the only thing I would say is that if you've seen our old lightning effect, it did sneak out accidentally a couple of times in older add-ons. This is not that, bluntly. This is a new system that looks a million times better. So it's you'll look forward to seeing some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so training center. I'm really excited for training center. I think that, and from what I've gathered from looking at players' receptions to all of the different facets of Train Sim World 3, Training Center seems to be something that a lot of players have been like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And obviously we are going to be showing Training Center. We're going to do a specific live stream on Training Center. I think we've earmarked Tuesday the 23rd for that, but it might still be subject to change. But Matt, tell us a little bit about Training Center, because it's not necessarily the easiest concepts to grasp straight away, and obviously it's easier shown than it is talked about. But tell us a little bit about Training Center.
So with Training Center, we wanted to have a core route, a standard route that we could do all of the tutorials on, and somewhere we could also take out all of the how to play this game stuff. So one of the challenges we've had prior to this is any route you own could be the first thing you do in the game, and therefore we need to teach you how to play the game, which leads to every single route teaching you how to look up, look down, look left, look right, and so on and so forth. And it's just a joyous experience. So we're not doing that anymore. So the route intros, even starting from as early as crew, no longer have that stuff in them. And what we've done is we've taken all of the how do you play the game and put it in Training Center. So the first thing you do as a brand new user, if you are a brand new user, is you go through Training Center's fundamentals tutorials, and it will teach you these things. You can skip that if you don't want to, obviously. And then the other thing there's two facets to it. One of them is the route. So the route is based on Wildenrath in Germany, which is, if you're a long-time player of Train Simulators, you'll recognize it from Test Track in TS Classic. But the scenery is not based on Wildenrath in Germany. So we were inspired by the track plan, and then we put our own scenery around it to just make it really, exciting to be, really, great visuals. But so yeah, we put all the tutorials on there for the various training, and Adam and the team have gone to some absolutely fabulous lengths for sort of, because it's such a small environment. There's like the building the Training Center building that you can walk through has got some really fantastic details in it, and it's really interesting how they've been able to explore what they can do with that and try some ideas for it. So there's some really neat stuff there. But then in addition to the route itself, which has its own Class 66 loco, there is the UI element of Training Center. Because again, one of the problems that you find is you might think to yourself, as a lesser experienced user, I'm going to drive the BR 185.2. What tutorials have I got for the BR 185.2? And previously, you'd have to go to every route and see if it had a tutorial for the 185.2 on it. Now you go into Training Center, click the 185.2, and it will tell you everything you can learn about BR 185.2. All of the tutorials that use it will be listed in one single place. So it's a really great way of taking all of that learning there is in the game and putting it into one easily findable place. So it's the combination of the two, I think, is really exciting. And aside from that, you can use Scenario Designer to make your own stuff on there. You can try your own trains out on there using Scenario Designer, and we've set everything in the route to be manual junctions, so you can go anywhere. You don't have to have any kind of a route set. You can just do anything you like in Test Track. It's a complete sandbox. So it's tremendous fun. The detailing is beautiful. It's worth just wandering around the route and seeing what the team have done. Lots of little scenes in there. And I think we'll get Adam at some point to come and sort of talk about some of why they did what they did, and some of the things they've experimented, and some call outs for some sort of fun stuff to go and look at that's a bit different. Yeah, so that's kind of where we got to where we got to.
And there are a few Easter eggs in there as well, aren't there? That
There's
players
some
will,
fun
I think,
stuff.
pick out straight away, but are still
Oh,
fun.
there's one in particular that I'm particularly proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you are, Matt. So there are. I mean, just while we're talking about Training Center, I think it's worth thinking about it as a separate route. I think it's obviously you've got the kind of the three kind of complete routes that make up the standard edition, and for deluxe you have Spirit of Steam added into that as well. But I think for the purposes of what Training Center offers, it kind of almost, that kind of sandbox mode almost, where you can kind of jump in and do what you want with it. And it does feel like, whilst it's quite a short track, it is a place where you can go and experiment and try new things, and perhaps do something a little bit different that you wouldn't normally do on any of those other routes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my brain just went completely blank.
That's fine. I think we're fine to move on. One of the other really exciting things that Training Center allows us to do. Actually, no, sorry, I did have a question before I move on to that. Things like LZB tutorials, things like that. Will they be on Training Center, or will they still be on the route-specific introductions?
So they'll still be on route-specific things, because trying to imagine that Training Center, if you want to teach PZB and multiple types of UK signaling, multiple types of German signaling, American signaling, and all the rest of it, Training Center would become a confusing mess, or enormous, with multiple repeating copies of itself. So Training Center covers the basics. And then what we've done is we put a lot of work into additional tutorials which take place on the routes themselves. So there is the transitioning to a dynamic brakes tutorial on descending trains that takes place on Cajon Pass. But again, you'd find it through the Training Center user interface. There is the TVM 430 tutorial. There is an LZB tutorial. There is a power changeover tutorial, which just allows you to just try get used to the power changeover sections on Southeastern high speed. So we have put work into doing more advanced tutorials, and again, we'd really like to get your feedback on what you think of those. And in addition to the fundamental stuff which runs on Training Center.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to quickly flick to a picture of the Training Center. Resplendent, lots of trains there. Obviously, it's a great sight to see. One of the other things that Training Center allows us to do, and this is something that I'm personally really excited about, and I think a few players have kind of twigged and clocked onto it as well, and are also quite excited, is about the opportunity. This allows us the opportunity to perhaps decouple locos and routes as well in the future, which is obviously something that we know the community have been talking about for a long time. What are the practicalities of that, Matt? I know there are going to be a lot of questions about this, because it will be what variants of these locos will be available on XYZ, all of that kind of stuff. We'll come on to that. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But in terms of the decoupling and everything like that, what does that entail, and what benefit as a player do I get from that?
So we've been wanting to solve this problem of taking the classic collection, preserved collection into mind. You've got, for example, let's say you want to buy the Class 33, but in order to use the Class 33, you need to buy West Somerset Railway. But now we've got Scenario Designer. Why should I have to buy West Somerset Railway? I just want to buy the 33 and put it anywhere using Scenario Planner. And you can't, because of how things work at the moment. And one of the things stopping that is because the tutorial is on West Somerset Railway, and we can't really put the route to the loco out without even its basic tutorial. So Training Center solves that problem, because going forward, we can put all the tutorials, all of the basic how do you drive this train, on the Training Center. It's got third rail, it's got overhead, it's got all the basics that you need to be able to learn how to do the simple stuff with the train. And that's enough, I think. Which means that if we put the tutorial in the Training Center, and then there's some gubbins, stuff that needs to be done, technical stuff in the background that will then effect the decoupling, and then then you'd be able to buy that locomotive without needing any route at all. And if you don't own the route that it comes on, well, then it's up to you to put it on Scenario Planner or something, or use it by substitution in some cases. So we're not there yet, just to be clear, but Training Center is kind of the biggest bit of solving that problem. Now that that's in place, and the goal is every loco DLC going forwards will be built with that in mind.
Yeah, and I know there's been a few people asking why we've not done loco add-ons for a while. It's not necessarily because of that, but it does allow us to do things a little bit more freedom. There are a few things that perhaps players should know about this, is that when we're talking about decoupling, we're talking about the specific locos that come with a specific pack. So for instance, if we're saying, Matt, give me an example of a...
So these are loco DLCs are what I'm talking about. So This is a loco that does not come with a route, but requires you to own the route. So the 33, the 52, those would be examples. They require you to own West Somerset Railway. The BR182 that requires you to own Rapid Transit. Those kinds of things. Now, I don't know when we'll get to decoupling those ones, but we haven't done any loco DLCs for a little while now, because the team have been focusing on the locos that are in the packs. But as we get on to doing more loco DLCs again, the idea is that they'll be separated, so that even though they come with perhaps scenarios for a particular route, you won't need to own that route to be able to buy it and use it how you want to use it.
Yeah, and by use it how you want to use it, we mean you're able to then put it onto Training Center and play it. Will you be able to use it in layers for other routes as well?
It should activate layers, it should activate substitution, and it should be usable in Scenario Planner. Again, these are the things we need to just prove out with the first one. And that's part of the technical gubbery that's got to be done to just close the loop on that thing. But those problems are relatively easy to solve now. Training center is in place.
Gubbery is the word
Gubber.
of this live stream, and I love it. No, it's great. And I think when we're talking about sort of, a lot of people have said, okay, so Train Sim World 3, there are lots of really cool features here. What's the one thing I think that has been, or if we had to pick one thing out that kind of took this really away from Train Sim World 2, it's the training center and what that enables us to do in the future. That's the kind of, the decision to be able to pull those things out is not something that we could do in Train Sim World 2, but it is something that we can do with Train Sim World 3, and it is something that we will be doing with Train Sim World 3.
Yes.
And we are going to see how it goes, and it should hopefully give everybody at home the opportunity to be a bit more free with the way that they play the game.
Yeah, it'd be more down to building the collection the way you want to build it, rather than there being you having to own things you don't want to have to own, which is frustrating for everybody. So this is a step towards being a big step towards being able to solve that. So keep an eye out. We'll update you via roadmaps as and when things are happening on that front. But we just wanted to basically just say this is the first big step towards being able to solve that problem.
Cool. Okay, so I think we've done an hour and 45 minutes already on Train Sim World 3 and the features and the routes and everything like that. And as I said before, we'll go into more detail in some of the other live streams that we're going to be doing in the course of the next few weeks. There are a few other things that we talked about on the roadmap that we're going to talk about now. So there are a few people that have chucked in the chat various different questions and things like that hopefully we're going to be answering now with a few kind of FAQs-y bits. So as far as your preserved collection, or what we're going to be calling Train Sim World or Train Sim World 3 compatible content, that will all come over onto Train Sim World 3.
Yep.
There are a couple of that all should come over on day one. I think New Journeys expansion.
New Journeys and the 3 routes from Train Sim World 2, so Sandpatch, Bakerloo, and Colnacken. There'll be a slight delay on getting those across because we've got to get them pulled out and separated out. But that's underway. It just won't quite make day one. So they won't hit the available on day one. Everything else should hit on day one.
Yeah, and those will be able, if you've pre-ordered, then those will be available to you. Those TSW compatible or TSW3 compatible content will be available to you on launch day. So they won't be available during early access. It'll only be the 3 core routes plus Spirit of Steam if you own that one on Train Sim World 3. Those will be the ones that will be available to you during the early access window. The content in Train Sim World 2 that you currently own will, when you bring it over, and you have to re-download it all when you download Train Sim World 3. So you will, but you can uninstall Train Sim World 2 on whatever device you have when you've downloaded Train Sim World 3.
You don't need to have it downloaded for it to transfer over or anything like that. So it's if you've got disk space issues, don't worry. You can remove it. The game, your platform of choice still knows that you own that piece of content. So and then download it as and when it comes. And it is a separate download because it's all been rebaked and rebuilt for Train Sim World 3.
Yep, they're all when you bring them through, they will all have dynamic weather, as we mentioned earlier. The other features that we've talked about for Train Sim World 3, so the visual effects, the lighting, the volumetric skies. I think that's it. Training center. Oh, obviously Training Center will be part of it anyway. Those will not transfer into your old routes. They would require us to basically rebuild those routes in some cases when we're talking specifically
it's
about
a
lighting
fairly
and things
significant
like
update to do the lighting,
Yeah.
and the volumetric clouds and the lighting kind of come as a package deal. So it's not like previously when we went from the previous system to the one that was in Train Sim World 2. It was relatively straightforward to switch between the two systems. This is definitely not, because the lighting all needs redoing, which means textures need redoing and baking needs redoing, and it's a big job.
Yes, and when you have everything that's when you've downloaded Train Sim World 3, you'll be able to then download the add-ons that are that you've got, whether they're the regional packs, whether they're the 3 core routes, Spirit of Steam. That you'll be able to get those with the packages that you've purchased. Spirit, if you have got one of the regional editions and you own Southeastern, then you'll need to download Southeastern as an add-on, if that makes sense. There are obviously lots of different pricing options available to everybody, and you can check out the full. There's like a graphic on our FAQs that kind of goes through all of the details of everything that everybody gets. Game Pass is on Game Pass, which means the standard edition for Xbox is not available to pre-order. That was a prerequisite of Microsoft, unfortunately. So standard edition is available, or will be available on Game Pass, but it won't be available to pre-order. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we're talking about Preservation Crew. So again, we'll try and cover as many questions as we can do. There are a lot of questions about performance and things like that. Please go to the FAQs because that'll have the recommended specs. We'll be adding in a minimum specs when we go through. We are testing on 8th gen consoles, and we're trying to make sure that, as I say, where possible, the performance is obviously the performance is king here. We're trying to make sure the experience is as good as possible across all of the different platforms that we are launching on, including 8th gen. If there are any changes to the experience, whether it's removal of some of the AI traffic or anything like that, we will let you know before we launch, like we did with Spirit of Steam. Preserved crew or preservation crew. Should we talk about that, Matt? Obviously,
yeah,
there was a section in the roadmap where we talked about what their role is going to be moving forward. So obviously there are things that are currently on the roadmap which are we've had on the roadmap for a long time. Things like the Bakerloo timetable, preserved updates for things like Oakville and Peninsula Corridor and all of those kinds of routes. Those will still be coming to Train Sim World 2. They will also be coming to Train Sim World 3, and the likelihood is they will come to Train Sim World 3 before they come to Train Sim World 2. But we will endeavour to make sure that the gap between them is as short as we can do. But they will still be coming to Train Sim World 2. Everything on the roadmap that's specified as Train Sim World 2 will be coming to Train Sim World 2. Again, please take a look through because it makes more sense when you see it on a screen. I'm trying to go through a lot of things here, and I appreciate I'm going quite quickly, but obviously we want to try and make sure that I'm covering as much ground as we can do. The preservation crew themselves will be... they've obviously done a great job with bringing some of the older routes in Train Sim World, or from TSW 2020, or even before that, up to... or adding in features that would make them relevant to Train Sim World 2. We've talked about the training centre and the amazing amount of work that's gone into that, and I think one of the things that we wanted to do with the preservation crew moving forward is actually, okay, they've worked on that for a long time, and they've obviously done a good job doing that, Matt. What's the kind of the direction that we're taking them in moving forward?
So there's a number of approaches that are being taken on with Adam's team, and bug fixing previous routes is still going to be a part of their remit, and looking at player feedback of where we can improve issues and so on and so forth. So that still remains part of their remit. They're going to be enhancing Training Center with new tutorials, and we've built the Training Center with the idea that we can add other stuff to it in the future. I'm not going to go into what that is because it's not finalized, but we've built it in mind to be able to do more things with it. So we're going to start looking at what some of those things might be and how they might be implemented as well. So the training center, a goal is that it will evolve over the longer term. And there's a range of different things that they're looking at, but I guess another thing we want them to look at is looking at the launch window, the post-launch window of a route, being able to have their team come in and respond directly to player feedback, not just in terms of bugs and issues, but also in terms of this could be better, and actually we'll schedule in an update. So when there's a launch, there'll be an update then that comes some point after it, which is then to take on about the feedback and so forth that have been found to then do an actual scheduled update to the releases that go out.
So sorry to interrupt you, Matt. That would mean that, say, for instance, rather than us waiting, in some instances, a really long time for a specific piece of or a specific update to come out, the idea is with this hypothetical process, it would be much less time than that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be they'd be looking at it in with just after the launch, they'd then start looking at what those things might be, and maybe 4 to 6 weeks, I don't know, something in that order, is kind of the time frame they'd be looking at to then, polish the route, to platinum levels, if you like, and take it from where it launched to, if the feedback is, oh, that scenery could have been better, maybe they've got the skills to go and polish up the scenery, and they won't be able to say add 20 miles to the route, but they can take what there is in the route and look at the key feedback and sort of say, yeah, this would actually make a difference. That's good feedback. Let's go and do that.
Because again, you might have noticed with some of the preserved updates that have happened in the last couple of months or so, that rather than just adding features, they're also fixing bugs as well, which is, again, I think that probably is the direction that we were going to be taking them in longer term. And for me, I think that feels like a really sensible move. I don't want us to be in a position where players are having to wait months and months and months for something that feels like it should be quite a trivial improvement. I know most of the time it's not just a trivial improvement, but from I don't know, there's one thing that's really nagging you about a route, and we know that if we were able to get it done within a smaller time frame, it would make a lot of players a lot happier.
Yeah, and I think there's also trying to create getting players used to a pattern of the release comes out and then there'll be an update, rather than not knowing if there'll be an update or when there'll be an update. So actually planning that in, so that it becomes something you can start expecting. So we're still trying to figure out how all of that stuff would work out and what that would look like, but that's kind of what we want to do. So as well as sort of fixing the critical issues on the older content, it'll be more about looking at the stuff that's just going out and looking at current content as well as bringing up older content. Now, at the moment, there are no plans for Adam's team to, for example, adding TSW3 features. So whereas Adam's team has been adding TSW2 features to TSW 2020 routes, that is not on the roadmap for them going forward. So assume your TSW2 routes and earlier remain as they are in terms of compatibility or the feature set, but there'll be bugs fixed and so forth. That much is still on their roadmap. But so they've got some really interesting changes coming up, and I think the team are really excited. They really enjoyed working on Training Center. Big shout out to the whole team, and also that team have been helping the main route building teams on some of the features, and like for example, improving tunnel light baking and so forth. So there's some really cool stuff there. I mean, we had to develop a whole new tunnel light baking system for Kassel Würzburg, because if a route has 3 or 4 tunnels, you can use the system we currently use. But if it's got 50 tunnels, it's not even practically feasible to do what we were doing. So they came up with, with the whole team came up with a whole new approach for doing that. So it's Adam's team has really helped a lot in the creation of TSW3.
Yeah, and I think, again, important note to make on this is that the predominantly will be working on TSW3 content, and at the moment when we're looking at sort of if we say we're working on I don't know, let's use Boston Sprinter as an example, because we mentioned it earlier on in the stream. If we're working on a Boston Sprinter, when we're talking about the preserved updates or the sort of a hit of updates, is that something that we're planning to hit both games with, or is that something that we're just primarily focusing on Train Sim World 3 for?
So we're going to evaluate that as we go. Now, the stuff that's already in the plan, it will still come out for Train Sim World 2 as well as Train Sim World 3. So the stuff we've been talking about up to now will come out for Train Sim World 2. Going forwards, we're going to see how that works out, having to double up the number of updates that we're trying to put out to platform holders, how many players are wanting those updates still, and how feasible it is. Until we modify a route in Train Sim World 3, we can modify it in Train Sim World 2 and just auto-port the change up to the Train Sim World 3 version. So that's Adam's team primarily are making changes in the Train Sim World 2 version for that reason, so that we can uplift both versions together. If at some point we need to add a Train Sim World 3 specific change, so it's a bug fix that we want to put out but the fix is only available in Train Sim Mod 3, then it starts to diverge them. It starts to get difficult. I think the easiest thing to assume there is that we want to deliver onto TSW2 where possible, but at some point it becomes difficult. So the only thing we're committing to at the moment is the stuff that was already on the plan, and then as we go down the line, we will flag up, yes, this will be on either one of them. We're not ruling out Train Sim Mod 2 updates, but it logistically becomes very complicated because of the vast range of content there is there. So we'll let you know whichever one it is. Obviously, it will certainly happen in 3, but if it's going to happen in 2, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and I think when significant things are added, they'll be added to the roadmap, and they'll have the TSW2 close brackets at the start of it. Kind of going into that, I guess we're gonna come on to Add-ons Manager in a second, but I want to just quickly throw in achievements because I know that was something that had quite a lot of feedback from yesterday. We obviously put it within the roadmap because there's a lot of people that are very frustrated with some of the time that's been taken to get some of the achievements, particularly for Dresden and for I forget the other one off the top of my head, but there's 2 that have been there for quite a significant amount of 187. That's the other one. It's been there for a significant amount of time. Do we have a plan for what we want to do with those yet? And kind of as a part B, how are achievements going to work in Train Sim World 3?
So for the old broken achievements, the 2 or 3 that don't fire, we do still want to fix those. I haven't had an update from the team about what's wrong with them and why they aren't working. So, I would say broken core things like that, I definitely want to see fixed
On both games.
On both games, of course.
Yeah.
So in terms of how it works going forward, so someone said, have we fixed the PlayStation 5 trophy limit? That's not for us to fix. There is nothing we can do to work around the limits that Sony imply on the platform. But we have worked with Sony to this is where I'm going to go against what I just said, to work around some of those limits by fudging. So we've got an agreement to do something not normally done with the way that achievements are built. And it's difficult for me to explain, so I'm not going to. All I'm going to say is we are doing achievements in a different way for content going forwards, and it will mean we can get back to putting achievements and stuff again, but expect them to be a slightly different shape to the way you've seen them before. And it'll be more clear once stuff starts going out there and everything goes live. Then it'll probably be easier to just point at stuff and say, this is how it works now. So let's wait until everything's out, and then we can have an update on it. But we have been working hard. Sony have given us some really room that we can do. So
yeah, I mean, from an achievements perspective, again, worth pointing out that the actual achievements themselves won't port between the games because they're different games, and obviously we talked about
different achievements.
Differently.
Yeah, I mean, there literally is a platform violation for us to port achievements across. The achievement of an achievement can't be auto granted in the next version of the game. But the fact is, they are just different achievements now. So there's actually nothing to port really.
Cool. Okay. Let's talk Add-ons Manager then. Because Add-ons Manager we have good news with Add-ons Manager because we know it's been something we've talked about for a long time. For the people who don't tune into these regularly, this is the PS5 64 gig limit problem that we have experienced for a while. We just talked about kind of working with Sony, and it's something that they've never experienced before, something that we've never experienced before. But we are in a decent spot for the Add-ons Manager in terms of getting it out before Train Sim World 3 launches. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, it's going quite well. There's the Xbox beta testers are their version now has that Add-ons Manager in, and it's running quite well for them. So it's still, I think it's finishing up its testing in our test department, and it's a complex system. It's a very complex system, but it's coming through now, and we're delighted with the end results of it.
So that will be available for Train Sim World 2, ideally we believe in the next couple of weeks, at least before Train Sim World 3 launches. And then for Train Sim World 3, it will come in slightly after launch, so you'll be able to kind of reap the benefits of that on Train Sim World 3 slightly after launch. Just kind of side note with that, obviously it is designed to solve that 64 gig issue on PS5, and it does that. There are also a couple of additional performance benefits, or not performance,
Memory.
memory benefits, sorry, that it provides players with as well. We've seen some decent feedback from our beta forum when they've been testing this, that it's not going to solve all of the out of memory
Yeah,
issues.
it's not a silver bullet that solves everything, but we've seen people saying it's raised the bar.
Yeah.
So it's a move in the right direction, and we are still looking for other things that can go on there. So Xbox Series S, for example, I don't know if you've seen the press for it. Microsoft released a new version of their developer kit system, which is the way that we talk to the game talks to the console, which uses a lot less memory. So there are other moves afoot on the memory front, but this does give an improvement in memory usage, but don't expect it to be a silver bullet yet.
Cool. And so if you're on 8th gen and you own a lot of add-ons, it might help in some instances. We've seen that happen, but it's not going to solve everything, and we're going to take a look and see what we can do to optimize memory elsewhere throughout.
We're not stopping
the
there. We're still very much on the memory train.
Yeah, absolutely. So Liam mentioned, we did put in the roadmap. So sorry, I kind of half misspoke earlier. It's coming to Train Sim World 2 on console before Train Sim World 3, and then PC platforms, because it won't impact them quite as much, will come with the Train Sim World 3 launch, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, consoles where it's important, and we want to get it out because that's where you guys are having problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Save game. Now, this is a little bit of I think this one requires a bit of context. So, obviously, we know save game has been a problem pretty much since the dawn of Train Sim World. And it's something that we've talked about before on roadmap streams. We've talked about Dispatcher as well, which they're not the same issue, but we're going to kind of bundle them into bundle them into the same discussion, because they're similar kinds of problems where they're things that are built up over a long period of time, and now we're kind of getting to the point where we are addressing them. But Matt, tell us why players might be having issues with save game. Because, as I say, I think it helps to understand what the problem is, to be able to understand perhaps the complexities that are required with which to fix it.
So saving and restoring a game is actually an immensely complex process, because everything that was happening when you pressed save, and not just the train being in a particular location, but all of the signals and junctions on the route being in all the right places, and not just a signal is green, not just because it's green, but because a route has been put through it. And so all of the routes and the order in which the routes were applied, and what state all the controls were in on your train, and all of this stuff. So there becomes this complex sequence of stuff. And then on top of trains, you've got scripts that are running, and you've got the gameplay and the scripts that it's running, and where is it through that script. And it's looking at all of that stuff and making sure that when it restores, everything is back to the place it was when it hit the save. And some of that stuff is semi-automatic, the way that Unreal does it. Some of it is not, and it has to be catered for specifically. And so we've identified some areas in, for example, the Dispatch, where the order in which all the routes were made is not preserved. So when the game comes back, it knows what routes to restore, but it puts them back in a different order, which means train A had priority before, train B has priority now. Chaos ensues, potentially. So that's one of the things. So none of these things are necessarily big jobs to fix, but they need to be carefully found and identified, and then we go through it. Now, we're expecting there to be core fixes and to be content fixes in this one, probably more content than core.
Can you just again, what do we mean by content? What do we mean by core?
By core, I mean the code that runs the game, the thing that does the job, the executed bit, and then the content is the locos, the routes, the scenarios, the actual things you interact with.
And those are two different teams within Dovetail. We've got our engineering team.
It's multiple teams.
Yeah.
Multiple content teams, and we've got the engineering team that look after the core code aspect of it. So there's a number of people that will be in of different disciplines that are involved in that side of things. So it's a complex issue, but that's not to take away from the fact that it's also crucially important. I mean, we're totally with you, and actually gutted that it's being disabled for TSW3, but the other option is to leave it there and it be broken, because it will not be fixed by then. And what we also don't want to do is only fix it for TSW3 content. We want to fix it for everything, ideally, so that you've got confidence that when you hit save, it works. We've got a plan for what we want to do in terms of creating a team, and this will happen. We're going to start talking about it from Monday, to actually bring in a resource, people from the different disciplines, and just make this a focus until it's fixed. And that will involve, what I'm expecting is it's going to be a bunch of small fixes on a ton of content. So it's not like it's going to be a quick job, but we aren't sweeping this under the rug. This is a priority for us, and we want to make sure it works well. So we'll keep you updated as we go on with it. And my goal is to try and bring Save back in bits, rather than wait for the whole thing to be fixed on everything before it comes back. Try and create a way that we can get Save Game working on things and then expand that range of things as we deliver fixes, and then we've proved that it's all okay. We've already started expanding a QA process to understand how to test Save, and so that we can start using it to find the issues, and we'll roll that as part of the process as well. So actually doing a full test of all of these different aspects. Does the train restore correctly? Does the route restore correctly? Does signals restore correctly? Does the scenarios restore correctly? It's actually quite a complex thing. It's not just do a thing, press save, restore, because what did and didn't work in that, and is it apparent and relevant? So we need to make sure all this, there's actually quite an extensive process required for that. So this is what we're going to be putting in place to try and make this work.
Yeah, and so just to quickly summarize all of that, so Save Game will temporarily be turned off for Train Sim World 3 because at the moment it's difficult to work out firstly how widespread the challenge is, because we've seen lots of people say my save game doesn't work, my save game's broken, everything like that. It's difficult for us to be able to work out and ascertain what the kind of the level of that is, but we believe it to be, if we were to pick a percentage out of the air, how many times, Matt, do we think that might be happening?
How many times do you think what might be happening?
Like say for instance somebody loads up a save game and it's not working.
Most of the time.
Because obviously there are a few players that perhaps wouldn't have experienced this before. They might not have.
Some routes seem to be loading okay.
Yeah.
So if the route is simpler, Sandpatch Grade, I believe, works fairly well with Save Game. But some of the more complex routes, and certainly where you've got the more recent timetables that are significantly busier, will test these things. Certainly, and some of the more modern, later locos that have got more functionality, those kinds of things are where things are not quite. They're not working properly. So because it's an immensely complex system, and there are a number of factors in there which are just not being catered for in either the save, or even if they're being saved, they're not being catered for in the restore.
Yeah, so work is ongoing. We'll update players when we know more, but there is a team that's kind of our hit squad that are tackling this and that are going to get it to a point where we're happy with it, perhaps on a route by route basis, and then once we're happy with it, we'll add in save game functionality to, in theory, specific routes, and then we'll look to expand that as we go through and are confident with it. But there's obviously the identification of the issue, solving the issue, testing the issue, putting it into a build, putting it live.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's something that I feel like, given the scale of the problem as we understand it, feels like the sensible thing to do. We don't want, like, even if it's a 1 in 4 chance, if you are playing a route or you're playing something and you've got 1 in 4 chance of it not working properly, or not saving properly, that's a really frustrating experience. So I'd rather that we turned it off until we got it fixed. But I can appreciate, for the people back home, a little bit of a frustration, particularly when we've included longer routes as well. But we'll be working on it as a priority. Okay, right, we have been going for a long time, so I'm going to try and just quickly jump through a couple of questions that I saw asked about in the chat, and then I've got the couple of videos that I didn't show to show. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about that, and I think we're going to call it a night for tonight. We have got the Q&A stream next week as well, where we're going to go through some more of these questions. We might not try and address the same ones again, so if we've answered them tonight, we might not answer them next time round, so spread the word. Wheel motion blur. Is that something that is going to be coming to TSW3 for all of the routes?
Yes.
Yep, cool. Performance and specs we've mentioned briefly already. There's been quite a lot of people saying like, I have this, will it work? There's at the moment
If it works on TSW2, I expect it to do roughly the same on TSW3.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest with you, recommended specs on the TSW2 page were probably a little bit. We should have updated those beforehand in retrospect. But we have recommended specs on our website, and we'll be adding minimum specs once we're confident that, as I say, we've got the right level of minimum specs.
I think the minimum spec actually hasn't changed a great deal, and
No.
we did a test on it, and
Yeah.
in all those settings at 720p, we were getting 40 frames per second, so it's perfectly playable. It doesn't look fabulous, but hey, you're talking about a machine which is really, really low end. So I know I've seen some comments from people saying, "Oh my word, to get the best out of it, you now need a 3070." It's more about making the recommended spec match up with the current systems that are out there. Previously, the recommended spec, you couldn't buy a machine that bad anymore. So it's about matching that up. But fundamentally, TSW3 is going to run fairly similar to Train Sim Mod 2 on your system.
Yeah, an 8th gen as well. We mentioned that we're testing on 8th gen, and there might be a difference in experience for an 8th gen person versus a 9th gen person.
The usual kinds of difference as well. It's nothing you're not already used to in terms of the length of trains and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we have to make sure ultimately the performance is the number one really here for you to be able to play the routes as intended. And as I say, if there are any changes to that, we will absolutely let you know in as much notice as we can do.
Manic Pixie Dream Loco. So got Steam Deck. Can confirm it does work, but there are some issues, just minor visual anomalies in there that don't get in the way of it. So
yeah, we're not going to have the tick box, but it's playable.
It should come up as playable, the same as Train Sim World 2 does. But we are going to look at some point and seeing, because one of the engineers is a personal fan of the Steam Deck as well. So whether or not we get some improvements in there, but I'm playing it on the Steam Deck and it works fine.
Nice. Someone's saying, JD, did you have that facial hair when you started the stream?
It was a different colour. It's a lot whiter now.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anybody knows me, they know that my facial hair grows at the length of not very quickly. So probably the answer is yes to that one. Now we had a couple of things that I was going to that Matt's video that I wanted to quickly show with you that I didn't show earlier. They're both Southeastern related. One of them is the map. So I'm just going to quickly flick over that, and Matt, you can talk over the map.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some questions about the map. So this is St Pancras, the international platforms there. We've unhidden a load of tracks on the map so you can just see it more in context, better than it was before. The rest of the route, bits and pieces of the track have been relayed to make it smoother. You can see actually some of the consists scattered around, giving you an idea of the breadth of the new timetable. This is Ebbsfleet. You can walk between the two platforms. This is Dartford, which then
stop,
goes
isn't it?
out via Northfleet, back up to Ebbsfleet, and then you pass here down via, this is the HS1 down to Ashford. As you can see, it goes on and on and on. It's a huge extension to the route. And then I wanted, because the Hitachi depot is in and accessible, and you'll be driving trains in and out of that in service mode. So you can see more of an overview there of, what that is. It's quite a large extension. And then this is the line down here. And again, there's been scenery updates. You can see Hoot Junction there filled with stock. Look at that. Amazing. And you've got Strood, Rochester, Chatham, Gillingham, and down to Sittingbourne, and then Faversham. We did think about whether or not to do the Sheerness branch, and the decision of once a bunch of people that we talked to was actually the extension to Dartford was more meaningful because it adds more to the mainline run, so you get longer runs that are more substantial rather than just another short run that you can do, and it means you get more out of that 465 as well, which is certainly one of my favourite trains to drive. Yeah. So what I wanted to show here was just give you an idea of just to visualize the scope of the size of the extension to this route. It's great fun.
There's a lot of scrolling going on there, and the final thing that we wanted to show you, this is just a little thing, is some level crossing action. So just going to quickly flick over to that. Matt, do you want to?
So who can see what's different here? Yeah, already.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm going to just give a shout out to Will and the engineering team because he is our resident wizard. I'm expecting shouts for joy.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
There we go. And the cars actually react to you as well. So if you stand out on the road, the cars will stop and honk their horn at you. It's hilarious.
That's great. I love that. I love that. Right, let's go quickly back to us then, shall we? Nice thing to end on there. That's like when you have the news bulletins and it's the and finally of the live stream. Thanks very much everybody for kicking with us. It's been a long one, and I think it was always going to be a long one given how long the roadmap was and everything we wanted to show with you tonight. But thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for all of the questions in the chat, and thank you very much for all of your feedback. If you do have questions, we have got a specific question themed live stream next week. That's on Tuesday. Myself and Matt will be taking your questions. What we wanted to do with that, just to reiterate again, is we wanted everybody to be able to absorb everything that kind of we were able to show both in the announce, the 2 roadmap articles, and tonight, before then coming back to us with questions that we can answer. It gives us a bit of time as well to give definitive answers rather than off the cuff, maybe or maybe not. It gives us an opportunity to be really clear with how we're responding to things. So next Tuesday we'll be doing, I'm just going to try and work out and try and remember from memory, this is going to be dangerous, what live streams we have for Train Sim World 3 before launch. This is going to be very dangerous. We know we've got the Q&A next Tuesday, but that'll also have a little bit of UI in there as well, so you can see that live. The Thursday will be Kassel Würzburg preview with myself and Lucas. Then we'll have Training Centre the week after that with, and we'll get the audio team as well in to do a little bit of talking about some of the things that they're doing with Train Sim World 3. That'll be a really good one. If you enjoyed like the spectrographs, you're going to love that live stream. We're also going to have then the Southeastern preview that week as well. We've then got next week, is where I get a little bit more hazy. I think it's then weather and environment. Then we're going to be talking. I think Kat's also volunteered to do a Let's Make a Livery live stream. If she does anything like the Van Gogh inspired one, I'm in. That you saw on the UI images. We have a Cajon Pass preview. I think that's the 1st of September. I think that's down there as, and then also Spirit of Steam, which will have the new features as well because it's part of the deluxe pack. We'll be doing that on early access day on the 2nd. And that'll take us through. I mean, we'll do another one on the launch week as well, or we'll do another couple on launch week as well. But put those in your diaries because we've got a lot to be able to show you. We're going to have some dev diary videos as well that are going to be really exciting, give you a little bit of an insight into how we made the game, and lots of articles, lots of other bits and pieces, lots of behind the scenes stuff. You might see me twirling an umbrella around somewhere when we're doing outtakes. There's a lot of fun stuff as well. So we're really looking forward to this, and we can't wait to take you on the journey with us. Matt, is there anything you'd like to say just at this point before we then sign off for the evening?
I mean, if any of the team are watching, I just want to give a big shout out to the team. They've been putting their all into it, and I mean, you can see it with the passion and the quality of what's come out. It's great. It's great fun to drive, and I'm looking forward to showing everybody more of it as we lead up to the live. It's going to be great fun.
And I think that leaves us on a nice little ending, doesn't it? Thank you everybody for watching. We won't timestamp this tonight because it's quite late already, but we are going to timestamp this video tomorrow morning so you can then watch at your own leisure. You can pick out the bits that you want to watch as well, and we'll also plug this into the roadmap forum threads as well, so you can watch that as well. But without further ado, I'm going to call it a night here. Thanks everybody for staying with us again. Thanks Matt for joining me and being again my question or my maestro in on the side. Thank you, and thank you everybody for watching. See you later everybody. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
Cheers.